Hi, and welcome to episode of CineNation. My name is Brandon Sparks.
And I'm Thomas Horton.
And here at CineNation, we like delving into genre. We like kind of studying film genre, analyzing it, looking at the tropes of everything. And what we like doing is we like taking a month out of the year and examining one full genre. And for the month of June, we've been analyzing the theater genre in film. And last week we talked about All About Eve, and we've also kind of just established the tropes of the genre. And so Thomas, what are some of the tropes and stories that kind of reoccur in the theater genre, just to give people a recap of what we've talked about the past few episodes?
Yeah, so I think one of the main things we've talked about that everyone would be familiar with is kind of the seeing the fall of like established stars directly coincide with like the rise of a new star. That's one of the main things we've seen. But within that, we've also gotten a little bit more about like the idea of an aging star, and we've talked about the idea of a diva or just an actor with a huge ego is usually established as the kind of the older person that's on their way out. They might be paranoid about losing their fame. And we've also seen the kind of up and coming new actors who will do anything to get to the top. And then something we talked about, it's not as widely established, but something we noticed just across a lot of the movies was a lot of them were structured in that you were watching a show get ready, and then in the third act you actually see the show happening.
Yeah, the big kind of finale of the show, either like an opening night, is kind of the big thing that gets brought into it. One thing too, we've kind of touched on a little bit, and I think it's going to come up more in this episode than any of the other episodes, is the idea of art versus money, if that makes sense. Mm-hmm. Like commerce versus art, and how in this kind of genre, theater is considered the ultimate art for acting, and Hollywood and film is considered like a sellout role.
Yeah.
And I think that's going to be even more prominent in our movie for today, which is Birdman, or The Unexpected Virtue of Ignorance, not innocence. The Unexpected Virtue of Ignorance, a title no one calls this movie. And you have this idea of art versus money in this. And also there's a little bit of the relationship between an actor and a theater critic, which I think was a big portion of All About Eve. Mm-hmm. And is also a little bit of a big thing here in this in Birdman. But yeah, so we're talking about Birdman, or The Unexpected Virtue of Ignorance. And for those that are going to be listening, we're going to be spoiling the movie. So if you want to watch it, if you haven't seen it in a while, you've never seen it, you can rent it on Amazon, probably iTunes, or wherever you rent your movies. I think we both had a copy is what we did. Mm-hmm. Keep your physical media, guys. It's useful. So Birdman, it stars Michael Keaton, Edward Norton, Naomi Watts, Emma Stone, Zach Galifianakis, Amy Ryan, a bunch of great people, directed by Alejandro Iñárritu. And Birdman is about Regan Thompson, who is this aging Hollywood actor who is trying to transition to be like a legitimate actor. So he decides to go to Broadway and write, direct, produce, and star in his own play where he's adapting from a Raymond Carver novel. And it's all done in one shot. And you're kind of seeing him and his company of people as they're preparing for the opening night of the show. And they're going through a few previews as a way to kind of establish, you're seeing kind of the rough edges of the show. And then you bring in, because one of their actors gets hurt, and you bring in Mike Shiner, who is played by Edward Norton. And you also have Regan's daughter, who is played by Emma Stone. Her name is Sam, and she's kind of just been out of rehab and kind of drug-addicted character who's trying to establish a relationship with her father finally, and she's playing his assistant now as well. That covers it about Birdman. What were your initial thoughts about this movie?
I remember being
rewatching it.
Oh, I was about to say from the first time, because
both times.
This was really my second. I've caught it on television a few times, but this was my second like full rewatch of it. And I was blown away by it the first time I saw it. So it was definitely, I was excited to check it out again. It's not one that you necessarily like plug in for a good time. I mean, it is a satire. Like it's not a heavy drama or anything, but it's just so like manic and almost exhausting. It's not necessarily one that I like think of a good bit to like watch a whole lot. So, but I was really excited to come back to it. I
Yeah,
texted
we saw it together like 2014 when it first came out. ArcLight Hollywood, baby. First semester of film school. But yeah, so we were saying you texted me.
Yeah, I texted you and I said it's really fun to go back and look at, you know, what you might call the Keatonizance. You know, I remember the energy going in to see this, like, oh man, Michael Keaton's back. This movie is like made for him. It is literally about him, and he kills it. And you know, that was before Spotlight and before Spider-Man, and it's really fun to go back and like see this and be like, oh, that happened. Like this movie did that.
Yeah, this movie launched him back into the mainstream and weirdly mirrors what Riggin is going for in the play. Like that's what's so, like you're saying, it's about him. Keaton would later say it's the role that is the least like him, which is funny to think about.
Yeah,
but,
I mean, I don't think anybody thinks Michael Keaton is like this off stage, but you know, the idea
the
of
circumstances of it all.
and just the headspace you've got to be in to be someone who made like a decent amount of money playing a superhero. Yeah. And then to be living through this period where these other actors are making ungodly amounts of money playing superhero. like how does it feel to have been Batman in a time period where you were good? You that was a solid time to be Batman, but now look at like how much money Robert Downey Jr. is making and just be like how did I miss out on this? Like
exactly. And he's probably making like as much as Keaton made in the first Batman for a cameo role in whatever movie. I don't know. Yeah, and there's even like kind of scenes where like, oh, hey, Jimmy, I was like, when he's like listing off actors to bring in to replace the actor who gets hurt. Oh, bring in that guy.
Yeah, I love that when they say Fassbender, they say that he's doing the prequel to the X-Men prequel.
Or it's like Renner, he's in the Avengers movie. I mean, I got him too. It's just like every good actor is in a superhero film. And what's so interesting too is that you cast Edward Norton as the guy who's the real theater actor who won't do those movies, and you kind of have a whole history.
He's already done
him
one.
He's already done one. But weirdly, even his stuff mirrors it, because there's a conversation. We're jumping really ahead with some of the stuff, but there's a conversation when they're like, "Oh yeah, he quit, or actually he got fired from his last job." And there's some confusion of how he lost the movie that he was on, and it's like, well, that's kind of like Incredible or like Avengers for him, where it's like, oh, he quit. No, he got fired. Like he'll say he got fired. Marvel will say he quit, basically. Like they go back and forth of what actually happened.
Well, I think it's funny too, because in that run when they're talking about who to replace him with, I think they also bring up Woody Harrelson, who had not done a superhero movie at that point, but has now.
Now, weirdly, this is a brief mention. I think the original mention they had for that, I don't know if it was in the actual movie or if it was in the script and they changed it. That line was Philip Seymour Hoffman, is what they said. Because he was in Hunger Games.
And they go, so, he's got Hunger. He's doing Hunger Games.
And because he passed away, they had to change the line, is what it was. Just a weird tidbit I found when we were searching online that I don't know if anyone cares about. Yeah, it was fun going back and rewatching this because like I said, we hadn't seen it since 2014. It was one I remember loving, and it was the big kind of debate of the year was Birdman or Boyhood in terms of like the Oscar race. And so it's interesting also revisiting both these movies. I did Boyhood for Texas Month and then this one pretty quickly behind it. And I can see both their technical achievements is the thing. And I can see where the big debate was coming from. But quickly, before we dissect our favorite scenes in the movie, here's a brief history of Birdman. Iñárritu is mainly known for doing dramas and kind of these like tragic dramas with
very heavy dramas.
Very heavy dramas. And he was like, I really want to make a comedy, but done in one shot. And because he wanted to do something different. And the one shot idea was like, oh, we live our lives with no editing is what he said. So let's like kind of make a movie based around that, and setting it in a theater is kind of an interesting setting for that, where this character is going through some massive change in his life. And so Iñárritu told his co-writers, I might butcher some of these names, I apologize, Nicolas Jacobon, Armando Bo, who are cousins, and they're screenwriters, Argentinian cousins. And then a playwright, Alexander Dinelaris Jr. And so all four of these guys are writing this movie together. And they mainly wrote the script over Skype and emails, because Iñárritu was in Los Angeles, the cousins were in Buenos Aires, and Daenerys was in New York, so they were just like all separate across the world, and they're writing this script. It took over a year and a half to write, and they always wrote it with the one shot in mind. And one of the big things that in the script, Riggin is adapting a Raymond Carver short story, and they wrote the script without having the rights to it first. So they're just like, we hope we can do it, and they had to get it approved by Raymond Carver's widow, who loved it and said Carver would thought the movie was hysterical, is what it was, the script. And when they started to go cast it, they had a bunch of names in line for Riggin, and then Keaton's name came up, and it was kind of like, okay, I think Iñárritu basically said it's Keaton or the movie doesn't get made. And so Keaton had heard about the movie, then he read the script, and he met with Iñárritu, and he was like, hey, are you making fun of me? Because it's like, it's so close to Batman. And they go, no, this is what it's about, blah, 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 and kind of explained the whole movie to it. And then finally Keaton decided to come on board. And I mean, he's amazing in the movie. And Keaton, I think, is still one of the most underrated actors of, I think, our generation. It's like the Batman roles really did, like this character, like Riggin, it did affect his like trajectory. Like he kind of, it didn't go into hiding. He still works after Batman up until Birdman, but just nothing ever really hits on a mainstream level.
Yeah.
But he's good in every role he's in. Like, I mean, if you want to talk about the Keaton Assance, like, does it start with the other guys? Like, is that where
the other
begins?
guys was definitely me going like, oh man, it's good to have Michael Keaton back.
Yeah.
That was one of the main things I took away from that movie for sure.
Because that was 2010.
Yeah, but it didn't feel like you watched that and went, "Oh, he's coming back." That felt like he was just really embracing the like character actor portion of his career.
Yeah, which he hadn't really done before. He was doing a lot of just weird films. I don't know what it was. It was like he did a couple voiceovers. He was in Cars, Toy Story 3. I mean, the last big movie I saw him in, this is sad to say this, was Jack Frost with when he plays the snowman. Late 90s. Remember that? Remember that movie?
Really?
Saw that in theaters.
Oh, okay, wait, now I gotta go back.
Have you not seen this movie?
No, I have, but I've definitely seen him in something between that. Oh, Herbie Fully Loaded. He was Lindsay Lohan's dad.
But that's like, I don't count
First
that.
Daughter, he was president.
I saw White Noise, but much later. That was one where like I saw a trailer for when it was coming out. Like, oh, Michael Keaton's in the movie again. But I think like when my like last movie I went to theater to see Keaton as a lead guy was Jack Frost.
And then later, did you ever hear the thing that was meant to be Clooney?
Was it? Side note.
That's the rumor is it was supposed to be Clooney, and they never remodeled the snowman after they recast Keaton, and so it's a Clooney snowman.
That's interesting.
With Keaton's voice coming out of it. That's what I've seen that around on the internet. I can't substantiate that at all, but
we'll do that on our podcast about Jack Frost. Our deep dive into Jack Frost.
But yeah, I mean, look that snowman back up sometime and tell me that's not 98 Clooney.
Yeah, the eyes. Anyway, that's your brief history. I mean, again, like Hell or High Water, we'll wait another 5 or 6 years, and then we'll get a big like tell all about what happened on Birdman and who was supposed to be who and how it all came about. But that's the quick history. So let's just delve into our favorite scenes of this movie. I mean, it pretty much is one full scene.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it's in a way. So what are your favorite moments is a better way to probably put this one. Favorite moments in this movie.
I mean, I really like I really like Ed Norton throughout. Like, I think he's fantastic. And it's just fun to watch him on screen, and it's kind of like Keaton in that it's playing, like you brought it up before, but it's playing on his off-screen persona. I don't think anybody thinks that Edward Norton himself is that bad, but he is someone who is notoriously difficult to work with and kind of method to the point of frustration when he's working on movies. I also really, really enjoy Andrea Riseborough. Like, anytime, I wish a little bit more time was given to their plot line where she's his girlfriend and thinks she's pregnant, because she's a lot of fun. And I mean, everyone in the supporting cast is just having a blast in this movie.
Yeah,
I think.
You can feel the energy, like, of the, like, oh, we better not screw this up type deal. Like, everyone feels like they're on their toes for it.
Yeah. Emma Stone's great. Like this was, I remember this as being a moment, as well as with Keaton, but Galifianakis and Emma Stone just both being like, oh, this is a new start for both of them, and I think they've both gone on to like follow this path in very interesting directions.
I agree with you. This is kind of a first one where I saw, oh, she's like, not to say she wasn't a legit actress before this movie. She was making decisions that were putting her in this position. And Birdman felt like the first one, because it was her first Oscar nomination, where she like made that leap from being the girl in Easy A and the star, or the Gwen Stacy in Spider-Man, to being like, oh, she's like, you can see her now making like prestige movies, and not just, she was one of those actors where she made the leap from box office to the artistic choices, if that makes sense. And it's pretty much stayed in that realm kind of ever since Birdman.
Yeah, I think Birdman and especially The Favorite have very similar tones. I think Birdman was a great kind of lead up to that like really sharp, just biting tone of The Favorite, for sure. And Galifianakis, if you were a fan of Galifianakis's like stand up, everyone knew that he had a much darker side to his comedy. But I don't think real audiences really saw that. I don't think the wide audience really saw that until Baskets. And this was also kind of your first clue into that hey, that this guy, his career was defined for this short amount of time. He was just like exploded onto the scene, and it was like the guy from The Hangover. And this really felt like him taking control of his career and going, all right, this is actually where I want to go with this now.
Yeah. I did like him, and it's kind of a funny story.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
He did. I think that was kind of the first like dramatic turn, kind of dramedy turn, and this just put him in a serious. I mean, not a serious director, and I hate saying that to discount the directors he's worked with. But there's something about like prestige Oscar directors that people want to work with, and seeing Zach Galifianakis in an Iñárritu movie is kind of a jarring experience at first.
Yeah, because I mean, you can't stress enough how like dark his films were before this.
Yeah.
So even when they were just announcing the cast of this, you were like, this is unlike anything he's made before.
Give us a rundown of what he'd made before this, just real quick.
So I mean, there's Beautiful, which is just depressing as hell.
Javier
Bardem was nominated for an Oscar for that. There's Babel, which is loved and hated, but is also just depressing as hell. Brad Pitt and Cate Blanchett.
Did he do 21 Grams?
Yeah, he did 21 Grams with Johnny Depp.
Was Johnny Depp?
Like
Johnny Depp wasn't 20 Grams. It's Sean Penn, right?
No, Sean Penn. Yeah, just a lot of stuff especially about the drug trade and how the drug trade has just ravaged Mexico and South America. And Babel.
It's like we're into a theater movie.
Yeah, Babel was like a bunch of different storylines all coming together, and seeing these American tourists get trapped in an uprising in another country. It's so tough stuff. So yeah, that just when he was like, yeah, I want to do a comedy, everyone was like, and then to see this cast start coming out being like, wow, he's actually doing it. He's going with like comedic actors.
Yeah. I would argue Emma Stone was kind of considered like a comedic actress at the time with Easy A and Superbad. Galifianakis for sure. And Keaton, that's a big thing that's kind of haunted Keaton for a little bit early on in his career, was that he was considered a comedic actor, which is why people were upset when he originally got cast as Batman. But one of my favorite scenes is Edward Norton's introduction, when it's like, oh, because he's playing this Mike, the character of Mike is this just like great theater actor who's been praised by critics, who is going to come in last minute the day before opening night to play one of the major roles in the play. And he sells tickets, which is Galifianakis, who is Keaton's kind of producer attorney, is so happy by. And it introduces him so well, where he's just like, it's such like a theater like image of him standing with a fedora hat in front of a ghost lights on stage of like, oh wow, let's talk about this play. And
Mhm.
he's so like or like he keeps going, well, give me a line, do you know the script? No, just give me a line, I'll make it work.
Yeah, I love that. He
It's
like
just
sets you
so...
up. He's like, yeah, I'm just gonna go off the top of my head. Just give me a line, and then he like has the perfect script response back, and Reagan's like, what? And he's like, because his Naomi Watts, who plays who is his girlfriend, has already been cast in the show, and she's the one who recommends bringing him in. So he's like, yeah, I've been helping Leslie get off book for a month, man. Like, I know all the lines already.
And then, and then he's like, and then Keaton says the line, he goes, no, you don't say this. He goes, you know my lines too? Don't worry about the lines, okay? Just like, what do you mean right now?
it's that, I mean, you almost know it, and we know it from watching all these movies. It's like, it's that too good to be true moment. Like, he comes in, he sits down with Keaton, he's like, man, I know exactly what you want to do here. Like, I love this, I'm digging it. Give me the lines. I already know the script. Let's go. And then you've got that there's like a conversation between Keaton and Galifianakis, or Galifianakis is like, it's a really tough contract. I don't know if we can work this out. And Keaton's like, do whatever you can, make this happen. And then within like, I mean,
the next day,
within movie time, this one's the one shot. They work it interestingly with like passage of time and stuff. But yeah, within 24 hours, he's like trying to break the contract to get rid of him later on. So
yeah, it's I love, and this is kind of playing off Norton's persona, who's like he's an actor who likes coming in and like rewriting scripts, or he'll do it occasionally. He's either hired, I'm not sure how it goes about with him, but that's kind of what he does in that scene with Keaton, where it's like, no, like you're saying the same thing 4 times. Make it shorter, make it faster, and get straight to the point. And it's also really the first time, and this is kind of something to discuss, the first time where you really see Keaton as Riggin, who's playing the character in the Carver story, as a good actor. Mm-hmm. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Like Riggin, like all other times before, it feels very like stilted and just feels kind of fake, and it's just like he's trying to be what a legitimate actor would perform like, if that makes sense. And Norton's character gets something out of him and makes him really feel the scene. And the other scene that you mentioned that I love too is when they do the first performance with Norton, and they're just like, I think he's really drinking on stage.
Yeah.
And he's like, and ends up having a blowout or a blow up when he finds out that Keaton switched his like gin or his vodka to water.
Yeah, on
and
stage
he just
during
like
the preview.
Freaks out. He's a guy who, Mike is a character who is so, and I read one of the articles about this. Is like Mike is a character who like can only find realness or real attributes of his life and find out who he is on stage. And when he's off stage, he doesn't want to admit that he's kind of nobody. He only lives in this world of acting because that's where he like searches for the real. That's when he can become a confident person. When he gets off stage, all of his insecurities like come with it, and he doesn't know who he kind of loses himself in it. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Like he's very much like, I am an actor. I do this for the arts. I will live and breathe on stage. If I die on stage, I'll be happy. Like this he's obsessed with this, which is the opposite again, this idea of art versus money, where he kind of like doesn't like Riggin in a similar way as the theater critic, because Riggin's this guy coming in from Hollywood, and Riggin kind of represents everything Mike hates about the acting, about the job of acting.
Mm.
But I think he does, because I think he does warm to Riggin as an actor.
Yeah, I think so. I think he comes to, and I mean, I think he comes to appreciate that Riggin is going through this process that he deems realistic, or that he deems, authentic. And that's something that is kind of the major satire of this movie is you're watching a man completely break down, and everyone on Broadway is just lauding it. It's
super realism.
Yeah.
It's super realism. Yeah, and I think what it's this idea, well, Norton kind of talks about with Tabitha, who's the critic, where he's just like he's out there putting his self on the line for people, and you're just kind of writing about it. And Keaton comes back and brings that up later when he has a tiff with her, where it's like, I'm putting everything on the line in front of everyone, and then you're just gonna put words down on paper to summarize how much like you just like he talks about how like, and this feels like Inarritu maybe, and maybe all the writers kind of critiquing how they feel critics act towards their work, where it's just a bunch of descriptions but no opinions. It's just like, oh, it's terrible, it's disgusting, it's the worst thing I've ever seen, but never actually analyzing and critiquing the work, which is maybe a statement on our current view of criticism and art. Like, very rarely do you see people actually critique it of like why it doesn't work. It's just, oh, I didn't like it and I don't know why. And I think those scenes are pretty good too. The critic scenes they have together, because it's even the scene where like when Regan and Norton are at the bar and the family comes up to get a picture with Regan, and it's like, oh, he used to be Birdman. And no one knows who Edward Norton's character is.
Yeah.
And that's kind of the dichotomy of the relationship of theater versus film, is that this guy is like loved in the theater community, but because he's not in a movie, no one knows who he is. Any of our favorite scenes?
I mean, I love all the stuff with the critic for sure. I think she's great. And the scene, watching it this time, especially, I think on a rewatch, because I was so stressed out watching it the first time, but on the rewatch, just watching and fully appreciating the like Times Square scene is so well done, where Reagan gets trapped outside the stage door in his underwear and has to walk through Times Square to get back. I mean, from a technical standpoint, just orchestrating that is amazing, but the like walk that Keaton does, it's just like, yep, nothing going on here I go, and everybody just kind of starting to recognize him as he gets this whole crowd built up.
Hey, it's Birdman. And now there's like random, like, you suck. Like there's someone who's just like hates him randomly in the middle of the crowd. I don't get it. It's just like, you suck, Birdman. It's a great scene. And it's just, they shot it like midnight in Times Square when there was less people there, in hopes of not getting that many bystanders. It's also weird watching that scene if you know New York and you know he's going in the wrong direction of where the theater actually is. Like it's a weird, when I watch, I go, that's not where the theater's going. Like, he's going the exact opposite way of where this theater is in real life. They do a good job of combining the areas of New York, because I think they use like a different interior. Maybe it's like the interiors and exteriors are a little bit different. They mismatch some stuff around, and it works really well. It's like, it feels like if you know New York, you might see where the cuts and where they're jumping around at, but they handle it pretty well. I like the Emma Stone scene as well. That's like Emma Stone's big Oscar. Like that's the Oscar tape they play when she's yelling at Keaton.
You don't even have a Facebook profile.
I'm going to come back to that later, by the way. I have some thoughts on that. And I also like his scenes with Amy Ryan, his ex-wife. When they're very intimate scenes in his dressing room. I think maybe the last one is my favorite of the two.
But yeah, I think there's something really nice. I mean, they don't really bring it up, but you get the feeling that like she's the only person that really knows him from like before he got huge, and so it's always nice. It feels like he's comfortable with her, and it's nice to give them a couple of scenes where he can just kind of open up a little bit.
And here's a weird question: I mean, even though he has this like huge mental breakdown in the middle of this in the movie, do you think he's in a worse place before this film or during the story? Because she says like, "Why do we break?" I always wonder why we break up. He goes, "Why do we break up?" She's because she threw a kitchen knife at me. Yeah,
he does seem to be a little bit more empathetic than what you hear about his stories in the past. He's like really trying to. Throughout the movie, he's really trying to amend his relationship with Sam, which becomes, I think, ultimately like the heart of the movie. And you can they don't really go into details about why their relationship is so broken from before, but it really does seem like he's making a much different effort than he has in the past.
Yeah,
and the same thing with his girlfriend. You know, it's really well done, and I think a lot of it just comes from Keaton's performance, but there's several times where you can see him kind of stop and go like, I know how I used to handle this. I need to think about how a human being would handle this.
Yeah, he does handle his moments really well, and maybe that's because the mental breakdown's happening because he's more self-aware of what he's been doing in his life, and he's hopefully using the art as a way to express all this.
Yeah.
But maybe in reality, it's bringing up all these different things that he didn't want to bring up again. And it's kind of the whole, I think the Birdman character asked him is that how did we get here? Yeah. And it's like, how do we get in this shitty theater dressing room when we were making millions and millions of dollars and everyone around us is doing amazing stuff, but we're like divorced, our daughter hates us, and I'm putting all my money in this play that will probably do nothing. So another scene I do like, again, this is the Norton scene. It's when Keaton confronts Norton after the article in the paper, and Norton's in the tanning bed, and they kind of have their fight. But it's a great moment when Keaton's like, he talks about Norton quote like talking about his drunk father or whatever, and in the article he's like, "Was your father actually an alcoholic?" He goes, "No, I kind of made it up." He goes, "Well, mine was." And he does this whole scene where you're like, "Oh man, this guy's like a dark character," and then he just goes, "Haha, that was all an act." And Norton's like, "That's pretty good." Like it's just like, it shows you how, that's the moment you really see how great of an actor Keaton is, because it's hard to like do bad acting on a movie, and Riggins kind of doing that early on in the movie, and he's able to transition incredibly well from bad acting to realistic acting to incredible acting, if that makes any sense. Like, there's so many levels that he's doing in this movie. It's just amazing, and I'm not realizing it. I didn't realize it now until discussing it, just how good he is in this film.
Yeah. You see, I think there's a great journey. I mean, I think there's a reason, and this can go into, when we're talking about kind of the tropes, instead of having that, like, seeing the whole production at the end, we see like two specific scenes throughout, and we see him improve upon them. And I think his like big line is like, "What about me? Why doesn't anyone love me?" Yeah. And then he has this realization where he goes, I'm invisible. And you're watching in the movie, you're watching him kind of come to realize that about himself. Not necessarily he's invisible, as we see when he's walking through Times Square, like everyone knows who he is, but like, does anyone care who he is, I guess is the ultimate question there. He's Birdman, and that's it. But yeah, you see him, you see that line mean more and more and more to him as his experience goes on.
Because I think he is searching for love, or it's even the whole thing that I think his ex-wife says, like, you confuse love and admiration, I guess is what it is.
Yeah. And
he's always after that. In reality, he kind of needs to learn how to love himself, if the cliche way of putting it is that and maybe that's in the play, is kind of him discovering that. It's discovering, like we were saying, he needs to care more about his daughter. And that's, like you're saying, is the heart of the story, is Sam. That's why I think the ending scene is Sam is finally, I mean, this is the whole debatable ending of what actually happens, but like Sam's finally seeing her father be the man he was supposed to be the entire time. And that one shot of her looking up to the sky and him possibly flying. We'll move on, because the thing is, this movie is just so well crafted where it does feel like one scene. I also really do like the Sam and Edward Norton stuff on the roof. I'm a fan of their chemistry, and even the moment when Edward Norton's changing and Emma Stone's there and Naomi Watts comes in.
Yeah, I think the movie does a really good job. The script does a really good job with like giving everybody in the movie like something. Like you never. It's a very small like core cast, but Naomi Watts has a great scene where she's like, "Why don't I have any self-respect?" And Andrea Riseborough says, "Oh, honey, you're an actress."
Any more scenes before we move on?
I might. You know what? I'm gonna give out a little shout out to my favorite cameo in the movie. How about that like 2-second Bill Camp cameo?
Oh yeah, he's great.
Wild. I was like, that's Bill Camp.
I know.
This was I'm not super familiar with his career pre like the night of, but wow. I mean, that was when watching the night of was when I went, oh my God, who is this guy? But but really, yeah, to have like one line as a deranged man on the streets of New York. He was in The Leftovers. I had a very short cameo in The Leftovers as well. But
so here's the thing: is that moment in Riggins' head?
I don't know, man. There's that whole night. I don't know. Like, I honestly don't know where the like breaks are. It's wild.
Moving on to On-Set Life. They shot the movie with rehearsals in 2 months, is what it was. There's some great behind the scenes stuff on the Blu-ray of just kind of like them rehearsing it all through, and Inarritu kind of playing the Keaton part in a lot of the walkthroughs to get the camera movement and stuff right. It was shot by Emmanuel Lubezki, Chivo, who I think was he's like, I think it was that he was so worried about doing the movie, or he read the script, as like he was so worried about it because he knew he was going to ask them to do it. He did not want to do. He didn't like long takes, is what he said, which is so funny to me because Chivo was like known for long takes. Yeah. It feels like, and that's what he didn't want to do.
I mean, I'm sure probably he more than anyone would know how tough they are to pull them off, I guess.
Yeah,
because the long take in there's several long takes in Children of Men that are just iconic.
Yeah,
and then of course Gravity was,
and then you up the ante with The Revenant. Yeah. After that. Yeah. Edward Norton, or they had to perform 15 pages of dialogue at a time, is what the average was.
That's wild.
15 pages per shot. I think I read that there were 16 visible cuts in the movie, and then the last part, on-set life, or two things. Keaton said it was the most challenging role he'd ever done, and the one that was least like him. Edward Norton and Michael Keaton allegedly kept a tally of flubs made by the actors and actresses. Who do you think had the most, and who do you think had the least?
Galifianakis had the
most. Is that least or most?
Most?
No.
Okay. I don't know, man. Who we got?
Emma Stone had the most.
Okay.
And Galifianakis had the least.
Galifianakis had the least? Okay. I mean, here's the thing. Like, I watched all his stand-up and everything. He flubs a lot, and you can't tell if it's ever on purpose or not.
So they said that he would flub stuff, but make up stuff to make it work on camera. Mm-hmm. And that's the stuff the takes they would usually use, is that he would make it work somehow. What we got next? Well, I mean, we kind of talked about this. It was up for a lot of awards. The big thing, it was up against Boyhood, and coming in 2014. Boyhood and Birdman were the two big front runners, if you would say. Would you agree? Those are probably the two big ones. Mm. It won 4 Oscars: Best Picture, Best Director, Best Original Screenplay, and Best Cinematography for Chivo. 2 questions for you. Mm-hmm. Who should have won Best Actor?
Keaton.
Okay, I'll give you the names.
I remember this year was the one everyone thought Keaton was going to win. There's a clip of him going like, "Oh no!" after he didn't.
Well, he had a allegedly. That's my favorite word on the show now. Apparently, is to save myself. He allegedly had a speech, mm-hmm. and he had it in his hand, and he goes to you see him put it in his pocket and then start clapping for Eddie Redmayne. Mm-hmm. It was between Eddie Redmayne for The Theory of Everything, Steve Carell for Foxcatcher, Bradley Cooper for American Sniper, Benedict Cumberbatch for The Imitation Game, and Michael Keaton for Birdman.
Yeah, that's Keaton's year. 100%.
I think it's Keaton. Yeah, I think Redmayne is good.
Nobody. When was the last time anyone talked to you about Theory of Everything?
No one talks about that.
The Danish Girl. I still like to talk about the Danish Girl. Shout out Tom Hooper. But yeah, no. Who talks about the Theory of Everything at all anymore?
Even when I watched it, I mean, Redmayne's good and Felicity Jones is good, but it's like it feels like a biopic. Mm-hmm. That's what it feels like, and Keaton is. It feels like a virtuoso performance by Keaton in this movie. And it sucks, but oh well. Best Picture. I'm gonna read them off to you. Whiplash. Theory of Everything. Selma. The Imitation Game. The Grand Budapest Hotel. Boyhood. American Sniper. Birdman.
I think I still go Boyhood, man.
I will say this. After rewatching Boyhood, this is a harder decision to make than it was for me at the time. I think I would still lean towards Birdman, but it's a toss-up. It's a toss-up.
It's tough, too, because, I mean, they're both excellent movies, and usually you only have one movie that year that is like the technical masterpiece that you can point to and be like, oh my God,
Yeah.
how'd they do that? And this year you had two in very different ways.
Exactly. Is you have one that's more of the technical craft in terms of how they're like the one shot deal with Birdman. And that was the thing. It was kind of like Birdman, you go for the one shot movie, or then it took 13 years to make, or 12 years to make.
Mm-hmm.
Which one do you go with? It's like Birdman or Boyhood took 12 years to make and a whole year to edit all that afterwards. And then Birdman took 2 weeks to edit. I think because of Keaton, I have to go with Birdman. Because it's just that central performance that holds that movie together. And I think The Kid in Boyhood is what loses it for me.
Mm.
That's my reasoning for it.
I think from my point of view, Best Picture is sometimes, in certain circles, referred to as Best Producers. The producers are the ones who accept the Best Picture. And the idea of producing Boyhood gives me nightmares. The idea of producing Boyhood would keep me up at night for 12 whole years. I don't think I would sleep if I was working on that movie.
Okay. That's a fair point. You can have your opinion. I'm gonna let you keep it. But I'm still gonna go with Birdman. Moving on. What worked about this movie that we haven't discussed?
I mean, it's one of those weird things where like everything comes together perfectly. I think the script, the way it is shot, and the way it's performed all come together and the score.
Yeah.
Those drums, they just all come together to make it this like breathless thing that just moves. Because I can tell you, one shot does not mean that your movie is going to be exciting.
I agree.
As someone who has tried to sit through Russian Ark 3 times and fallen asleep every single time, it does not mean that your movie is going to, like, it doesn't mean a one shot doesn't always mean like a breathless pace. I think that's sometimes we compare it to that just because we've seen it pulled off in that way. But just because you're not cutting, I mean, a lot of times editing is what helps you get pace. So if you completely lose that opportunity, you have to make the pace up in other ways. And I think everything else, like I said, script, actors, and score especially, just they all come together to make the pace work perfectly.
Yeah, weirdly, the score got disqualified from the Oscars that year because they used too much music that had already been used. There wasn't enough original music.
The score of the play is pre-existing classical music, and then they kind of mix that into the score of the film. In the beginning, it's pretty well separated, that there's only like the classical score is just when the play is up and running. But I noticed it this time, as he starts to dive more into like his illusions, his delusions, the score from the play starts to come in. Like when he's having his like real Birdman moments, you get strings and all of that. Yeah,
I agree with all that. I agree. The score is great. The one shot is what really, looking back on it, works perfectly.
Mm-hmm.
Like sometimes one shots can feel like they're too long, and it can feel like a gimmick. And this doesn't feel that way. I was never bored by it.
It doesn't try to be realistic. I remember seeing it and coming out of the theater and people being like, "Oh, well, I spotted the cuts," and you know, that's something a lot of people like to do with 1917. But unlike 1917 tried to be like, this is real time. And because of that, there's so many people like picking apart, like, oh, it can't be real time. You know, it takes place over a whole night and it's a 2-hour movie. But this one never really tries to be real time or real, like this is a real camera. Like it has a kind of fantastical element to it that lets you just kind of, you don't feel the need to look for cuts. Like you don't feel the need to pick it apart.
No, it's definitely this like magical realism type movie where you have like talking about the cut or the transitions where it's like it's nighttime and then it fades to sunlight to daytime, and it handles it incredibly well. There is the whole like cut when he shoots himself on stage. It cuts to like kind of just the stuff that was shown up at the beginning of the movie, like the dead jellyfish and all that. I think I agree. We've kind of nailed everything about what works. Did anything not work?
Oh man,
I have a few things.
All right, I don't have anything in mind right now. What do you have?
It's more like questions, and I don't know. And and I don't say it doesn't work. It's the whole thing. It did age well. And that's the social media references. I don't know. It's jarring when I hear someone nowadays like talk about like, oh, you don't even have a Facebook page. Oh, I got you a Twitter now. Oh, they're going viral. And something about just feels like old men trying to be cool, if that makes sense, like the way it's written. It's just something. It's like I wonder, would that movie, if it doesn't have those, like, do we need those references? If that makes sense,
right?
It's like you don't even have. I don't know if we do.
I don't know. Some of them did feel a little outdated for sure.
Yeah, it's because it's like you don't even have a Facebook. I'm like, well, some people would agree that that should be the thing nowadays. You shouldn't have a Facebook page. Or some people would say, oh, Twitters can be very toxic. You shouldn't have a Twitter account. The one that probably would fit the most is maybe Instagram, and that's never mentioned in the movie. And this is the other thing that was happening, Birdman and after Birdman, that I'm not so sure about, is this idea of a older famous person, mainly an actor, a man, getting famous off a viral video. A lot of movies after Birdman followed this trope. Keaton does it. And The Hero, Sam Elliott has that, where he gets famous off a viral video. And then The Comedian with Robert De Niro, he gets famous off like multiple viral videos. And it feels like a very easy like cop out in a story where, oh, this video went viral and you're now famous and have all these followers all of a sudden after all these years of not doing anything. It just feels it's a reach. And maybe it's because at this point in 2014, people really didn't understand how to like viral, how to go viral. And there really is no clear-cut way of how to go viral. And it just kind of feels like, cool, we'll just like set this, put this piece into the movie and it'll make complete sense because no one really knows how to go viral. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Like, just something about that trope. I wanted to write an article about this at one point because I'm just like, it feels so weird that like it's all these like comeback movies. The way to get a comeback is you go viral on YouTube, and it just feels outdated to me already 6 years later. Okay, moving on to alternate universe cast. There's a few of these. Originally, Josh Brolin for Mike, for Edward Norton's character.
Interesting.
But the financiers want to change the roles apparently for some reason. They cast Edward Norton instead. Thoughts on Brolin in that role? I'm not sure.
Yeah, I don't know if he would have. I think he would have been a little too imposing, like a little too threatening. I think part of the fun of Norton in this role is he's not a like physically threatening person. Like he doesn't have that like deep voice. He's not a big guy. And so some of the times when he just kind of like goes off the deep end, you're just like, what is this guy doing? Like, I mean, not to say he can't be physically threatening. He's terrifying in American History X, but like, you know, and normal on the street Edward Norton is not necessarily a scary looking dude where Brolin is.
Yeah, this is a weird period when Brolin was kind of like he was rumored for a lot of different movies. Like he was originally rumored to play Batman in the Batman versus Superman role. He was originally talked about I feel like he was talked about for Jurassic World at one point, where he was going to play the Chris Pratt character.
Wow. Yeah.
Like he was hopping around where like he was trying to find a big studio film or kind of a big prestige project, and nothing was really clicking. And then kind of Thanos stepped in, and then Deadpool 2 stepped in. Allegedly, this feels this is something I found online. I don't know if this is true. I don't think she was big enough yet, but maybe she was after Wolf of Wall Street. Margot Robbie for Sam allegedly turned down the role of Sam.
Yeah, I don't know. I really love Stone in this role, and I think it was the perfect time in her career. So I agree. It's hard to see someone else in that.
I also have 3 actresses who auditioned for the role of Sam, apparently. Lily James.
Okay.
Amelia Clarke. And Blake Lively.
Yeah, I mean, those all make sense. Those are all the people I would see for
age
that.
range. Yeah, age range and everything.
Maybe I wasn't. I know Lily James was like on Downton Abbey at that point. I wasn't really on the Lily James train in 2014. I saw Cinderella in theaters. That was the first thing I'd ever seen her in. She was very good.
Was that 2015 or was that?
Yeah, that wasn't
Okay.
long after.
Emilia Clarke's doing Game of Thrones. Blake Lively. Had she done The Town yet at that point? I don't know if she had. She had?
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
Oh, yeah. The Town was 20.
Oh, yeah. Way before. You're right. Because I forgot. I was still in college. I was an undergrad when Archer came out. So, yeah. Those make sense. And all kind of people who were on the verge of like making that transition in some way, like either from like TV to film or lesser known, like Lively does it in The Town where she's kind of playing a darker character, but besides that, nothing comes to mind with that.
Mm-hmm.
Fun facts. The Birdman suit was made from a mannequin of Keaton's own body from Batman 89.
Wow.
And when I watched the behind the scenes and he goes, really? And then Inarritu walks in and goes, still fits. Like, he's just like, still the same shape I was in 89, baby.
Awesome.
Still going strong. Birdman was the first movie in 34 years to win Best Picture without receiving a Best Editing nomination. The last movie to do so was Ordinary People. It was the first film to win Best Picture that was shot entirely digital.
Oh, wow.
This is the second longest title of any movie to win Best Picture because The Birdman or Unexpected Virtue of Ignorance. Can you guess the movie with the longest title?
Lord of the Rings: Return of the King.
That is correct.
Hey.
And this is the last one, and this is more of a discussion piece. Do you know the original ending of this movie?
I do not. No, I've never heard that.
The original ending, it was written, and Inarritu apparently hated it, and he wanted to do something else, which is why you get the hospital scene. Hospital scene was not in the movie, not in the original script. The original ending intended to depict Johnny Depp in Riggins' dressing room with the Pirates of the Caribbean poster and Jack Sparrow talking to him.
Oh, wow.
Showcasing the vicious cycle of this story.
That's very All About Eve of them.
It very much so.
I kind of love that. It's a little too like on the nose. It's a little too silly.
Yeah,
but
I don't think Disney would let them have him in that was as Jack Sparrow.
No,
like
not at all.
Hands down. I mean, it's interesting. It's a different movie. It feels that ending feels more like a Hollywood ending in some way, and the hospital scene feels more like an Inarritu movie.
Well, it does. It is more. You know, you can see from Inarritu's point of view too. That is a more definite ending. Like we are to understand that Riggins has blown it now, and he is done. And with the ending that we're given, we're not really sure what happened. Did he just kill himself? Is he flying because his career is just taken off and he's a superstar again? What is meant to be shown there? And you can see Inarritu is kind of the kind of person that would skew a little bit more to like leaving some questions open, I think.
But it would have been fun seeing Johnny Depp, at least in deleted scene, as Jack Sparrow. Just have him on the Blu-ray.
But it's almost silly. Like
it's a silly ending.
Something. It feels like something they do like as a little thing, like an intro to the Oscars. You know, sometimes when they used to do like those things where they put Billy Crystal like in the different movies.
Yeah. If Johnny Depp hosts the Oscars, that's what he would be doing.
Yeah.
How do we get? It'd be Jack Sparrow through all the movies of 2014. Jack Sparrow in Boyhood. Jack Sparrow in Grand Budapest Hotel. Oh man, what a time! Anyway, those are the facts. Do you have any story questions?
I want to know how much that the full production of that movie cost, or of that play cost.
Oh, like how much? Like
how much were the rights? You know, how much had he really blown on that?
Yeah,
because he tells
Amy
Ryan, that he's broke.
Yeah,
like. And he says several times
refinance the house.
Yeah, it says several times that this play is going to ruin him. But like, how much was that? Did he save away his Birdman money wisely and then blow it all on this, or has he been blown it all and this is like a last ditched attempt to like get it back a little bit?
Yeah. Oh yeah. I was also wondering, like, how good was the play?
Yeah.
Like in actuality, because we only seen like those two. We see the kitchen scene when it's all them talking about love. You have the scene where he finds Naomi Watts, who's playing his wife, cheating on him with Edward Norton. And then you have the dream sequence.
The reindeer. Yeah.
That's it.
Yeah, but I mean that's the question too. At the end, if he's not dead, if he hasn't just thrown himself out the window, and if he hasn't, there's so many things that get symbolized, and one of them being if he is truly out there flying, does that mean he's broken free of the burden of everything else? But if the flying is meant to symbolize his career taking back off again, is it really going to go like Zach Galifianakis has said? Like he said, we're going to do a worldwide tour. We're going to be on the West End.
Yeah.
There's going to be a movie coming. Like it does that happen? You gotta answer what the end of the movie means first, and then see if of all these different ways you could take the end of the movie, if that means he's being successful, like how long does this play run?
Yeah. And who stays in it? Does he stay in it? Does Edward Norton stay in it?
Yeah. Also the next time, does it get all this huge press, and then the next time he doesn't accidentally kill himself on stage, does everyone hate it? Like,
yeah. Does he win a Tony that year? Like what goes on? On to awards. The Beatrice Straight Award for an actor/actress with limited scenes but kills it.
I think it's got to go Lindsay Duncan
Same.
as the
critic.
As the critic.
Yeah,
she's incredible. I think the only other thing I know her from is About Time, which we all know is a movie very near and dear to my heart. But she plays a very different character.
Yeah,
and then she's also in the Leftovers. She was in the last season of the Leftovers and was very good. But just from the few things I've seen her in, I've really enjoyed her and everything. And I think she brings out the best in Norton and in Keaton. I think both of them have their best scenes.
I agree
with her.
The Joe Pesci X Factor Award for a supporting actor who nearly steals the movie.
I think I'm gonna go Stone.
Really?
Yeah.
Okay.
I think because she is someone that I eternally think of as having the X Factor now. Like if she's in something, I'm like, oh, she's gonna kill it. And I think this was the movie that I knew she was very charming from like Easy A and all that stuff, but like this was the movie that made me go like, she can do whatever she wants to. Like she's the kind of person that has the talent and the ambition to like just nail whatever she wants to do.
Okay, interesting. I mean, my nominee is Edward Norton for this.
I would back you. I mean, I love Ed Norton. Like it's one of those things. It's hard to reconcile these stories you hear about him being so hard to work with. But
the thing is, then I've heard good stories about him. That's the other thing that no one talks about.
Yeah. Well, for years everybody was saying no director will ever work with him twice, and now he's made like 4 movies with Wes Anderson. Yeah. So maybe he's mellowed out a little bit as he's gotten older, but he's incredible.
I went to a Q&A, like a SAG-AFTRA Q&A with him, and he comes by himself. He doesn't really have like entourage with him. Gets his coffee and then just is very open about the process. And that's why it does feel like a little bit like he's a little bit like Mike in this character, where he's so passionate about the work and the process and the art of it.
Well, I mean, and that's the stem of all the complaints about him is the experience on the set of American History X, which, I mean, his defense of it is that he saw an opportunity to make this movie better, and he was going to take it to make the best movie it could be. And it rubbed some people the wrong way, and it's become kind of notorious. But if he truly believes in himself, then who knows? Maybe that's his right to do it.
Yeah, it's a photo finish between the two. We'll let you guys decide. Emma Stone, Edward Norton.
Yeah, I do. And it's interesting too that these are two roles where he's bringing so much of his persona to it, and she's building it from scratch. Yeah, she has nothing in common with this character.
The big argument that you could say of why Emma Stone would win is that this movie is more important to her career than it probably is to Norton in terms of like trajectory. Like Norton is going to continue making the same movies no matter what. Does Stone make La La Land or Favorite after this movie? I don't know.
Yeah, I think definitely not the Favorite. I think this movie leads directly into the Favorite.
Yeah,
100%.
Which, by the way, if you watch The Favorite, do a double feature with All About Eve. They're basically the same movie, just so you know. The Gene Hackman MVP Award, the person, actor, actress, director, who basically carries the movie through.
There's no other answer here. Maybe Chivo. Maybe you could argue Chivo, but it's got to be Keaton.
Yeah, you could argue Iñárritu because he's a co-writer, he's a producer, he's a director. But Keaton is just... He proves everyone right the small few that believe he's one of our greatest actors working today. Because he's so talented, and I've never really seen him give a bad performance. Again,
the range, man, the freaking range.
Yeah.
This is Beetlejuice we're talking about.
You're looking at a guy. I mean, he's. I had this conversation with a friend of ours who said, like, is I've always thought about how Gene Hackman, which is why this award is called that. Gene Hackman is always a guy who was in bad movies, but never gave like a bad performance. Like everything he said, it feels like he believed. And he was like, is Keaton our generation's Gene Hackman? Is he the guy who can be in bad movies, but somehow like you believe him? And
I gotta shout it out again. I've shouted this movie out on the podcast before, and one day I want to do an Amy Heckerling episode, but there's this movie he was in called Johnny Dangerously that I was obsessed with when I was like a preteen, and he's incredible in it. It is like a full out like Mel Brooks style just farce, and he just kills it as like the main character. He's like almost the straight man. Like everyone else around him is just wacky, and he has to play like the grounded guy. But yeah, and he can be like, I think he follows this up with two really great performances, especially in Spotlight. He is so, I mean, he's like your dad. He's the dad of this newspaper.
Yeah.
And he's just so likable, and you're just like, oh man, I just want this guy to like lead this group and get this done. And then Spider-Man. I mean, it feels weird to be like praising a superhero movie on the episode when we're doing Birdman, but he's so good in that movie.
He is.
It's one of my favorite just like villains they've had in that series. Is he's extremely relatable. Like you get where he's coming from, but he is just like so fun to watch be bad. It's a blast.
Yeah. Is he top 3 in Marvel villains?
I think so. I think the top 3 have come in the last like 5 to 6 years. I think it's Thanos, Killmonger, and Vulture.
You're not going Loki. You're not going the basic Loki.
I don't know. I think Loki's enough of like an anti-hero at this point that it's hard to even remember. I haven't watched the original Avengers in years, but it's hard to like think of him as just an out and out villain at this point.
That's fair. I do agree that Killmonger and Vulture are in my top 2.
Yeah, and those were like back to back. Like I remember going to see. It was Black Panther first and then Spider-Man?
Black Panther was in like February.
Yeah, I remember going to see both of those and being like, wow, because everyone used to just like talk about how, the Marvel movies are good, but like the villains are awful. Like you don't remember any of them. And after the months, after what they did to Christopher Eccleston in Thor 2, I was, I had a chip on my shoulder for sure. But both of those, yeah. I remember coming out that year and being like, oh, somebody within the studio has been like, give us some more interesting villains for sure.
Let's see. I want to make sure. I think Spider-Man actually might have been first. Spider-Man was first. Summer 2017, and then February 2018 for Black Panther. Sorry, correction. But yeah, I agree completely. They never really handled villains well until they had one of the greatest kind of streaks of Vulture, Killmonger, and then Thanos right after that, and Avengers Infinity War. Final questions. Here's the big one for Thomas. If this film was remade in the 1980s, who do you cast?
That's really tough, man. I've been stewing over this ever since you brought this up. All right, here's what I think I've got.
Okay.
Who do you want? Who do all you have? I've got Reagan, I've got Mike. I don't really have a Sam. I didn't really come up with a Sam, but I'm sure I could think of one. 80s. Yeah, I don't know. And I don't know how this would play out. I think it's a huge risk, but I think maybe you could pull it off. Okay. First off, I'll pitch you my Mike. Dustin Hoffman as Mike.
I'd buy that. It's Tootsie. It's his character in Tootsie.
He was one of the first people to really get a lot of press as being like new age method. Like, Laurence Olivier would talk about how freaked out he was by him. Like, so I think he had that persona in the 80s to bring in and be like, this is the guy that like, Meryl Streep said she'd never work with him again, that kind of thing.
He's a problematic guy. But I agree with that. It's his character in Tootsie. Like it's when he can't work with anyone because he keeps critiquing all the directors.
He's great. He's incredible, but he's a little too New York for everyone. Like he's a little too method.
Yeah. Okay, I can go with that.
I mean, I think you already know who I'm gonna say for Reagan.
No, go ahead.
Adam West. You have to.
Oh man, that's a.
I mean, you're at a really weird time. I did some research. I was trying to think of like someone who was in like the first wave of superheroes, but I mean, the radio serial guys were all kind of done, but were all like dead by then.
Is Christopher
like
Reeve too young?
Batman from the TV. Yeah, because they were still putting out. I mean, '83. Christopher Reeve, I think, did Superman 3. I mean, that's
okay.
You could change it a little bit to be like where he's not like necessarily like aged and washed up, but he's still trying to like break away from Birdman. If you changed it like that, then yeah, absolutely, I would cast Christopher Reeve 100%. But then I was trying to do cowboys. I was like, do you change it to be like cowboys?
Yeah.
But I mean, a lot of the cowboys died in like the 70s. Like John Wayne was dead in the 70s. Like, I think you got to try Adam West. I think Christopher Reeve would have done a really good job with this if you had made it like if you had changed it to be like, this is the turning point of your career. Do you want to do another Birdman movie, or do you want to go to the stage? I think that plot line would have worked with him.
I'm gonna throw one out.
Mm-hmm.
This might too random, but I'm just thinking of like a guy who's really big at the time, who would be an interesting career makeover. Burt Reynolds, thoughts?
Yeah, I can see that. Yeah, like action star.
Yeah,
I can see that.
And weirdly, because in the movie Hooper, Burt Reynolds plays a stuntman, and he's the stuntman for Adam West. That's the connection. Do you have a Sam?
Yeah, I mean, not off the top of my head. There are a lot of really talented actresses in the early '80s. You know, maybe I don't know who'd be younger than Adam West.
Well, you're looking at like mid-20s.
Yeah.
Jennifer Connelly? How old is Jennifer Connelly at that point?
Yeah, I think she might have been a little too young. She was still playing the teenager. And
Meg Ryan.
Yeah, sure. Yeah, absolutely.
Meg Ryan could be interesting.
Mm-hmm.
Sure, Meg Ryan. You got Meg Ryan.
I'm still trying to picture Adam West and Dustin Hoffman like
in a movie together.
Yeah, just facing off against each other.
Who directs it?
I think that, I mean, that's the thing. You got to bring him in. You got to make him audition. I don't know that he could pull it off. He's so camp. But but I think if you're trying to create the exact same feeling that we had, and I mean, it's Batman both times, and I'd prefer it to be a different superhero. But if you're trying to create the exact same feeling that a lot of people had walking into this to see Keaton in this, I think it has to be Adam West.
I'm gonna say one that could be interesting. Let me see. I'm gonna see if the years are right. He might be too big at this point. Robin Williams coming after Mork and Mindy.
Yeah, but at what point did people start taking him seriously?
I mean,
when you have like Vietnam, Good Morning Vietnam.
That's 87.
Okay, yeah, maybe.
Throwing it out there for you guys. We got Adam West, Robin Williams. Adam West is just such a off the wall pick.
Another one I looked into, if you were going to go like younger with it, like the Christopher Reeve direction, that I think could be really good, was Mark Hamill. If you were going in that direction,
Mark Hamill.
This is the turning, not like the revitalization of his career, but like the turning point.
The turning point. I like that. Who else do we have? Who's the Zach Galifianakis character?
Bill Murray.
Bill Murray. Yeah, that makes the most sense. Who directs it? I have a pick.
Oh man, Altman.
Okay, that's not a bad pick. I'm gonna go Scorsese.
Okay.
It's After Hours. Is what
I think he gets the pace. Yeah, I think he nails the pace for sure.
It's like After Hours, but in the theater. Yeah, I think it's good. Does this film fit with any other genres?
I think this is squarely. I think this was the most theater movie we had in a long time when it came out.
I think when you jump from like All About Eve to Birdman, it's a good comparison piece because they're both just like in the theater. Mm-hmm. I don't know where you put this where do you put this story? Maybe in making a movie, but I feel like it doesn't really work because you need that audience there watching. Like maybe a musician, I don't know. How does this film fit within the theater genre?
I mean, I think it definitely has to speak to, I mean, we've seen some of these movies about like the fall of an actor from like an outside point of view.
Yeah.
Like 42nd Street is more, we're not necessarily meant to sympathize with the star of that. More so with the rising actress there. But I'd say with like All About Eve or with Stage, what's the one? Opening Night?
Yeah.
Yeah, we're a little bit more in their minds as they're like kind of seeing themselves lose their grip on power, and I think this fits right along with that. This is it delves into it a little bit deeper than I think we've seen before on one of those, and it gets a little bit more dark for sure, and a little bit more satirical as well. But I think it is fully within that weird subgenre of the theater genre that is like losing your fame and the complete like horror of losing it and doing anything to get it back.
Yeah. It's good you bring up opening night, because that's the one I think this movie is very similar to, because opening night is about an actress who is not accepting the fact that she's aging and needs to play roles that are more in line with her age. And she starts to see an obsessed fan that died, and she begins to relate that to her younger self. So she's having scenes and conversations of this vision of this young girl who haunts her, that's in her mind, that's her younger self. And she has to essentially somehow get rid of it before she can finally reach her full potential as an actress. And she shows up like drunk to the final performance after she feels like she's gotten rid of it finally. And that's very similar with Birdman, where he's having conversations with his alter ego that plays Birdman, but essentially is his younger self as Birdman. So yeah.
Well, and they also no one really outwardly addresses, I feel like, his age in this, but it's very obvious to us anytime he's in a scene with his three other cast members are much younger than him.
Much younger.
And I think it's mostly pointed out by the continued like motif of the hairpiece throughout the movie. Like he's always fuddling with some sort of hairpiece that no one else has to.
That's a good point.
Yeah, it's very subtle in that it's never like you're too old to play this part, but you're supposed, you can see it, like it's there.
Yeah, he ends up having not even just the wig, not the hairpiece for the dinner scene, but the hairpiece when he comes into the motel. That's just almost so like comic, like the curly hair on Michael Keaton just looks so. It looks like a wig. Yeah,
it's too dark. Yeah, the color's too dark and it's curly. Yeah,
the other hair actually works fine. Like it's a solid wig, but that one doesn't. The theater though, but yeah, it definitely fits into this. It definitely has the aging star. It has the theater critic, the idea of critic taking on, like, essentially kind of attacking someone who's harming the purity of theater, and in a way the actor as well. Is it a good companion piece to All About Eve? Is it a double feature?
Yeah, absolutely.
They're both theater. Which one do you do first? All About Eve first or Birdman first?
I think you got to start All About Eve. Yeah, I think you got to do it chronologically.
Okay, I'll go with that. Anyway, that's our episode for Birdman, guys. Next week is our final episode in the theater month for June. We're going to be covering Bob Fosse, his filmography. Only made 5 movies, so it's going to be an interesting conversation, but definitely they're within the theater world. And so go rent them on Amazon if you can find them. Some might be streaming. Yeah, make sure you subscribe to us on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or Stitcher. Give us a like, give us a review, give us a rating. Make sure you like us on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and follow us on Medium. And yeah, that's all we have for you today. Thomas, as always, thank you so much for coming on.
Yeah, man.
And guys, thank you so much for listening. We hope you listen to more episodes soon. Bye.